Hi there, and welcome to the world of Excel VBA coding. Today, I'm going to show you how to find the last row and column of your worksheet, along with how to find what the next blank row or column is. This is a pretty basic technique, but one that you will use over and over. We use the last row and column technique when we want to limit how much data to search, when we need to add a new row or column of data, and when we need to tell our program where to find data entries. So let's VBA. So I have on this employees sheet, I have data already populated into the sheet. And you can see that the last row on here is row 5, as it says here. And the last column is going to be column R. Now, in Excel VBA, you've got to understand we don't always use the R. It's more convenient if you use the number, and R happens to be column 18 as well. So, what we're going to do is we're going to look at code that is going to return to us this row number of 5. And we're going to be looking at code that's going to return a column number of 18, along with a couple other little things. So let's get started. Let's look at our code. Now, we're going to do two methods to be able to find the last row of your data. So, very first thing is you have to dim your variable. I always like to dim my variables as things that will help me remember what they are, like whatever their purpose is of having it. So we're looking for last row, so I'm going to call it last row. Now I'm going to dim this one as long because when you dim it as long, that will return a number. All right, so now we're looking at sheet 2. That's my employee sheet. So I'm going to say with sheet 2. And anytime I do a with, I automatically go and do an end with because a lot of times I will forget to do that and it'll cause an error. Now, since we dimmed this as long, in order to set our variable, we're just going to say last row equals. Now, we're going to type in dot cells, parenthesis, and we want it to count the rows. So we're going to say rows count, and we're going to use column 1 as the information that it needs to search through to count these numbers. You can use another column as well, as long as it's got data all the way to your last row. Then I'm going to type in end, XL up. Basically, it's going to count from the bottom up till it gets to the beginning. And then I'm going to put dot row because when I put dot row, that will give me the row number. So now we want to test it because it's as simple as that. And I've got this cool thing. If you don't know about debug print, it's incredibly valuable. And I'm going to debug print the last row. I'm going to come down here and get rid of this information. Um, when you do the debug print, um, it's going to, when you run this, it's going to show the information down here in your immediate window, the outcome of it. Now, just in case you don't have the immediate window open, you can go to View and then click Immediate Window, and that will open this up down here. So I'm going to go ahead and go up here and run this. And you will see it gives us the last row as number 5, which we know that it is. So good. It's as easy as that. But I am going to show you a second method. And down here, we're going to dim our last row as a range. Now, when you dim as a range, you've got to understand that returns a specific cell address. So that's going to be our difference. So we're going to say with sheet 2 again, and our end with. Now, you're going to kind of do the same thing. When you're talking about a range, you do have to set the variable. So we're going to say set last row equal to, and it's the same code, dot cells, rows, dot count, column 1, dot end, XL up. And I'm not going to put dot row on this. I'm going to leave it as it is. All right, so now when I debug dot print, last row. All right, so what you have to understand here is this is a range. It is a cell reference. So when I do this, I can put, it's going to return the contents of what is in that particular last row cell. So I'm going to hit run. And you will see that it's got tomfoolery, which when we look over here, that's the information that was in that cell. So see, it's a great way to be able to find what that last cell is as well. All right. So that is all there is to finding the last row. And next, we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the column. So for last column, once again, I'm going to show you two methods, and they are very similar to doing the last row. In this case, I'm going to dim last call as long, same as before. And once again, we're with sheet 2 and width. All right, so now you're going to do last call equals dot cells. Now, this time I want to see the last column, so I need to pick which row I want it to look at. And I'm going to have it look at row 1 because that's where all my column headers are, so I know the information is in there. And then I'm going to put columns dot count dot end XL to left. And that means it's going to count the columns all the way back to the left. And then I'm going to put dot column. So now when I debug print last call, let's go ahead and run it and see what it is. And we get 18, which remember the last column was R, which we know is also column 18. So that's it for that one. But now let's look at method 2. So for method 2, we are going to dim last call as range. And then once again with sheet 2 and width. Okay, for this one, once again, it's a range. So you have to do set last call equals dot cells. And it's going to once again be row 1, columns dot count dot end XL to left. And I'm going to leave that as well. I'm not going to put dot column because I want to see what is actually in that cell. So if I say debug.print last call, it's going to give me whatever is in that actual cell. And the word notes is there, which is exactly what we wanted to do. Now, just on a side note, I could have said last call dot row, and that will actually return the row number. So see, it's in row 1. So I could also put dot column. And when I run that, you'll see it's in column 18. So you've got some flexibility. And I could have done the same thing up here with this one. I just wanted to show you the two different ways to be able to do that. All right, so that's all there is to finding the last row in the last column. So now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to look at how to find the next row or the next column. Because when we look at our information, one of the biggest points of doing this is we want to be able to continually add data to our worksheet. And we don't want to overwrite the data that is there. So we usually have a need to find the next blank row or the next blank column. And we're going to do that real simple here. It's actually, I already wrote the code because it's actually very similar to what we just did. For method 1, you're going to go ahead. I put dim next row because remember, I'm trying to keep the name of my variables so I know what I'm doing and using them for. So I'm going to dim it as long. Then I'm going to define it as next row. Now, all of this is the same, rows.com, column 1, XLUp.row. But then I'm going to do a +1 because remember, if I don't put the +1 just with this information here, that's going to return the number 5. But I want the next row after that. So I just do +1, and that's going to give me the number 6. And see, when I run it, I get the number 6. So now I can use that as my reference for putting in new information into that next row. Now, for the second method, though, I'm going to dim the next row as a range. Now, for this one, I set the next row, and then I'm going to do everything the same, except I'm going to say dot offset. Now, an offset is simply a shift, and you can control the way you shift it. Now, we're only going to be using this with the range. So I am going to, I want to shift it down one row. So I put a one in the row. Now, I don't want to change the column. I don't want to change where it starts. So I'm going to leave that as 0. So when I do that, that actually is going to shift it down. So when I do the debug.print, I'm going to put in here next row dot address. And when I do that, it's going to give me the address of that next cell. And when I run it, you see it gives me A6. Now I could have done dot row and ran it, and I would have gotten 6. I just kind of want to show you the versatility of what this can be used for. Now, same thing for finding the next column. Same thing. The first method is to dim it as a long, and then all of this information stays the same, dot column, and you do a +1, and that'll move it to the next column. So our last column is 18, so it should come back 19, and you'll see down here that it does. And then, of course, the last one is going to be using it as a range. This time with the dot offset, I don't want to mess with the row because I'm just trying to move to the next column. So I put a 1 for the column number. So now when I run this, you'll see it comes out S1. And once again, I can say column here and it's going to give me 19. So you've got a lot of versatility with this. So that's it to finding the last row, last column, next row, next column. Pretty easy. You will find yourself using this a lot when you're VBA coding. So if you follow me on other videos, you're going to see that I use it in just about every piece of code that I create. So, speaking of that, please take the time to follow my channel and subscribe to it. And also drop me a question down in the comments. I'm always happy to help answer specific questions. Thanks and have a great day.